Behnam Ben Taleblu is a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies. He joins us now from Washington. Great to have you with us. Mixed messages coming out of Washington, especially from the president. 1 minute he's talking up war, saying that if Iran wants to fight, that will be the official end of Iran. Then the next he's playing down tensions, saying there are no signs of threatening action from Tehran. What is Donald Trump's strategy, if indeed he has one?
I definitely think the strategy is the max pressure campaign, which is using all elements of U.S. national power, diplomatic, political, informational, and even military, to get Iran to come back to the negotiating table. Now, that does not mean the U.S. is looking to start a war. In fact, if you look at U.S. posture and even U.S. rhetoric, even how fiery it may be, it's looking to stem a war. It's looking to stop a war from even happening. So in this vein, I think the president is facing an audience problem where in the U.S. side, he, of course, wants to tamp down any fears that there could be a conflict. And on the Iranian side, he wants to make sure that this increased sanctions, this increased military positioning in the region is taken seriously. But the problem is the Iranians are aware of what the president is saying to the domestic audience here, and that can, over time, undercut the efficacy of U.S. deterrence.
So you believe that Donald Trump doesn't want war, because it would seem that his administration is slightly split. His National Security Advisor, John Bolton, has long advocated for a regime change in Iran. But you think Donald Trump doesn't want a war? That's correct.
And if you look at U.S. policy towards Iran, it is dealing entirely with the regime's foreign and security policy in the near abroad, and as well as key functional threat areas like the nuclear program or the cyber program or the missile program. These all have to do with the regime's behavior. Now, in fact, it would behoove the administration to be able to marry some of its rhetoric in support of the Iranian people, which has been quite admirable, with some more actions. But no, this is a strict behavior change approach, in my view.
Does President Trump view Iran the same way that he looked at North Korea? There's threats and escalation of tensions, two countries on the brink of war, and then the door opens to diplomacy.
You know, that's a great question, because both countries have been subject to a quote-unquote max pressure campaign. And I think that the North Korea example could be instructive for the administration not to prematurely undercut the efficacy of its sanctions with some kind of diplomacy that might take the wind out of some of the economic penalties that the U.S. is now able to score against Tehran. If anything, Washington should be looking for indicators of macroeconomic contraction and political duress in Iran if the Iranians do want to come back to the negotiating table. But North Korea and Tehran are two nuclear-inclined rogue states that have shared ballistic missile technology, that know how to best Washington at the negotiating table, and I'm sure that they share talking points and secrets. But the U.S. approach, I think, is different despite sharing the initial max pressure campaign cover.
But let me ask you this. Will that strategy work? We've heard from the Iranian Foreign Minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif. He has dismissed the taunts. He said Iranians have stood tall for millennia while aggressors all gone. Try respect. It works. Should Trump be listening?
I think if there's anyone that should be trying respect, it is the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran towards its own people. Yes, the Iranian people have stood tall for several millennia against foreign and domestic oppressors. One thing that this administration, I think, has done quite admirably is to be able to accentuate the cleavage between the Iranian state and the Iranian society, because there is a natural chasm, a natural cleavage there. But that being said, there are things that the administration does need to do to be able to make sure Tehran and Iran's leaders there understand that Washington is serious about getting Iran back to the negotiating table.
Behnam, there are reports from Iranian state media that the country has increased fourfold its production of low-enriched uranium. Tell us the significance of that, and where does this lead?
Sure. Iran is looking to signal that it too has escalation options. On May 8th, President Rouhani unveiled two 60-day timelines for Iran to gradually increase its nuclear program. During that first 60-day timeline, Iran would be looking to accumulate excess heavy water and excess low-enriched uranium above the threshold that the JCPOA nuclear deal provides Iran to be able to store at home. So Iran would essentially not be selling this surplus material and be adding redundancy into its program and be able to alter breakout timelines because of its excess low-enriched uranium. This Iranian highly public statement about reconfiguring some of its centrifuges without adding any new machines is designed to be able to make good on that threat.
Well, we know that European countries are desperate to keep the nuclear deal alive. Iran has given them until the end of June. Is it possible?
In some ways, it's worth noting that the Iran nuclear deal is already dead because it was never designed to live on without any major component, whether it's the Europeans, the Iranians, or even the Americans, not being a party to the deal. In fact, all are required for the deal to be fully functioning. Now the Iranians are continuing to abide by it because they think they can outlast the Trump administration's max pressure campaign. The goal, of course, for Europe is how can you balance Washington and Tehran off of each other while living up to your desire to push back on Iran in the region and do something more comprehensive when it comes to the Iranian missile program. So I think Europeans definitely have a tough challenge cut out for them, but I think if their goal is to bypass American sanctions, then they will fail.
Behnam Ben Taleblu, great to get your perspective. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.